Hello and welcome to Career Talk, where I, Lee Hopwood, CEO at the CCMA, chat to people working in the contact centre industry to find out about their careers, the journey that they've been on, and maybe a little bit around what makes them tick. So I am really pleased today to have Michael Sherwood, who is the Head of Digital Experience at Atom Bank with me. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Lee. I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for inviting me along. I'm not quite sure whether this means I'm old, or probably does, doesn't it? Actually.
Not necessarily. It's but hey, 27 years in the industry. There's a lot that I think we can hear and draw on from your experiences. And I was looking at your career history before we got together, and you have worked with some of the most amazing brands: Virgin Money, Tesco Bank, BGL, Orange, and just now before we went live, we were talking a little bit about where you are now, having worked with all these amazing brands, had this amazing career, and you've now got this fantastic work-life balance. I know Atom Bank has the 4-day week, and I want to touch on that at some point over the next 30 minutes or so. But I want to understand right at the start, what makes you tick? What was it that was early on in your life that you think that you could put your finger on, that maybe created this really driven and entrepreneurial type person? Was there something that in your life that you can look back on and go, do you know what, that was a real key influencer to what shaped your career?
Yeah, sure. I guess there's a theme throughout my life and career, which is that circumstances have really driven me. So when I was kind of a teenager, my parents had their own successful haulage business, and through no fault of their own, in the late 90s, when we were last in a real kind of inflationary spike, interest rates went up to kind of 15%, and unfortunately for them, their business went bankrupt. And we went from quite a comfortable middle class ish lifestyle to, we had to sell the house, we had to move into a council estate, and even quite early on in my life, that kind of shaped me and created this drive within me to do better, to achieve. There was also a sense of unfairness as well, because my parents were really, really hardworking, and thought they'd built this great business, and then, like I say, through circumstances, kind of lost everything. So I think that was kind of probably the start of things. And then kind of went through school, left school, and I actually left home at 16 to go and make my own way in the world, and went to move in with some older friends. Kind of off I went. As you can imagine, my parents went too overjoyed, because I think about it now. I mean, I've got a 21-year-old daughter. I've got a 16-year-old son now who's in 5th year at school, old money 5th year, and I think, crikey, that was really young. But that was kind of the start of it, really. And my first job was actually as an assistant professional golfer on a YTS scheme. So the YTS scheme was set up where the government would pay employers to employ you on an apprenticeship kind of basis, if you like. And I got £29.50 a week, and it was over at Blackwell Grange Golf Club in Darlington, which is about 30 miles or so actually travel from Hartlepool, where I was born.
Does that mean that you had quite a good handicap at that age, or were you really still learning how to play golf?
I did. I was off 3 handicap. So golf's always been my kind of my passion from a sports perspective. So I was down at 3 handicap, fixing clubs and stuff, and yeah, that's where it all began, really. And I was there about 8 or 9 months, but again, circumstances would dictate that I wasn't going to go down that path, because the battered old Mini that I had broke down, and because I was only getting £29.50 a week and I wasn't living at home, I was having to pay to get the train and buses and what have you, and it was just too much effort for too little reward. So I kind of packed that in, and then decided, right, okay, well, what am I going to do then? And I just bummed around for a bit and didn't do a great deal, and thought, right, okay, you're going to have to do something here, mate. And I decided to go back to college, and went to do a BTEC at Cleveland College of Art and Design in Middlesbrough, and the history of architecture and design. And then, past that with flying colours, and really enjoyed the design and architecture side. And then there was kind of a stepping stone into a degree at the University of Teesside doing architecture and design history. And then spent 4 years at university, and then came out of university with like most students with no money and lots of debt. And then kind of fell, again, circumstantial, into the contact center industry, and that's where my career kind of really started. A friend of mine.
Tell us where you got that first job.
Well, it was an outsourced call center in Hartlepool called CJ Garlands and Co. It's quite a big outsourcer, but this was at the time when telephone banking was just starting to kind of take off. Mobile phones were just starting to take off, and they'd secured a contract with Vodafone Connect. And a friend of mine said, you might want to think about applying here. So I put in my application, went for the interview, got the job, and started on the phones as a customer service advisor for Vodafone Connect, who was the client. And that's where my career in contact centers and customer experience started.
And it sounds like you've spent, therefore, most of your career in arguably fintech.
In financial services. So started on the phones, for mobile. It's been mobile telecommunications and financial services, either banking or insurance is where I've spent it. So started off on the phones for Vodafone, promoted as a team leader really quickly. There's an interesting little ditty there. So I got given the team as a team leader that I was in, which was an interesting one at a young age to try and manage that one.
And how did you do that? Because that being promoted from within your own team, and if you've got a team of people that are potentially, there's some people that are significantly older than you at that age. Is there a bit of advice that you can give people that you now reflect back on that and go, do you know what, I did that well, but I could have done that differently?
Sure. There's I guess there was a meritocracy thing in that I was I did a good job on the phones. I was really customer focused. I didn't shirk or kind of try and avoid work in terms of being in rap and what have you. I was doing kind of 100 calls a day. I was really productive, and I guess I earned the right, if you like, to get promoted. And but it was still challenging. So certainly from a people perspective, because I didn't have any training. And I'll give you an example. So there was one lad on the team, and he was playing up basically. And he was playing up quite a lot, quite often, and really challenging me. And I got to a point where I had a couple of conversations with him, and being naive and wet between the ears, I got to a point where I just had enough of it. And I actually took him off the phone and took him into the office, and no HR there. I mean, we didn't really have an HR department, to be honest. I didn't have any training on kind of that side of things at all. And I told him that he needed to pack in, and I was going to give him. I was actually giving him a verbal warning. So little did I know it wasn't worth the paper it was written on, because there was nobody there from HR, etc. But it worked, and actually the lad kind of I guess respected me for standing up for myself, and he actually, when I left Garland's to move to Virtutel, which was my next job, he actually came with me. And
oh, wow,
was in my team for another couple of years. But yeah, I was certainly thrown in the deep end and learned lots of stuff, kind of trying to stay afloat, if you like.
And not having any training as you are going into that role. And I love to think that these days things are different, and then when you get promoted into a team manager role, you might get some training. I suspect that that's still not a standard across the industry. So you went from being a team manager at Garland's, working on the Vodafone account. How long were you there for before you then went into your next job?
About a year, something like that.
Oh, wow, so really quick.
Yeah, really quick. And again, I was young, had lots of student debt, and it was just right. There's another job. It was in Peterlee, a company called Virtutel, and it was more money. It was that simple, really. It was more money, and that was a company called Virtutel. And I initially joined as a gas and electricity team leader, And again, total twist of fate circumstances meant that I was in training. It was day 3 of training. I remember it vividly. And there was a knock on the door, on the training room door. And the MD, a guy called Andy Phillips, God rest his soul, knocked on the door and said, Michael Sherwood? I was like, yeah. And this was the guy who ran the entire thing. I was like, right, okay, well, what's going on here? He said, can I just have you for a couple of minutes? Anyway, he took me up to his office. Absolutely no idea what he was going to say. And he said, you've got experience in mobile phones, haven't you? I said, yes, I have. He said, we've just secured a new account for Vodafone. And we see that you've got Vodafone on your CV. Do you fancy getting involved in this? And I thought, well, yeah, why? I just said yes straight away. Why not? Anyway, it was outbound calling, and it was small business customers. A lady called Wendy Golightly. I worked with Wendy to build the system, the outbound system. Got a software developer in, working with the Vodafone account, and basically went live within 4 weeks. Built the system, recruited new people, and started making outbound calls for Vodafone within 4 weeks. So yeah, and then grew that business to a point where we had kind of 20 odd people, I think it was, and really quickly, because it was quite successful. But then npower came in with an exclusivity deal for the entire Virtutel company. So we had to serve notice on Vodafone, my baby, if you like, serve notice on my baby. And npower came in and basically took the entire building, and that was npower's first contact center in the Northeast, which then grew to something like 3,000 people. So yeah, so I was there for a couple of years, actually. Again, learned loads of stuff really quickly.
I was going to say, really cutting your teeth in contact center creation, as well as that whole. I guess you're going to be managing stakeholders and all sorts to get that up and running. So what happened next? Because was it around then that you went to Orange? Then going back to your mobile phone roots.
Yeah, exactly that. I then went to Orange up in North Tyneside, and at that point, all of Orange's customers were serviced through the general customer service contact center. But when they did a bit of analysis on the customer base, they realized that they had quite a lot of small business customers, SMEs, and that their average revenue per unit was much higher. And we got together and said, right, okay, we're going to design a differentiated service for them. And I was asked to lead that piece of work from an ops perspective. And I was the help desk manager. And we worked with channel marketing, experience design, and said, right, okay, we're going to come up with this new experience. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 from the handset. Worked through, did a lot of research in terms of what really matters to small business customers, trained the people, got it up and running. And I think it's still actually running today. So if you're a small business customer, you'll be working for EE. With EE, you'll dial 3, 4, 5 from the handset and get through to a specific team.
So you said that you were asked to lead on that initiative. You previously said that you were pulled out because of your Vodafone experience. These opportunities, I'm going to say, it sounds like they land in your lap. Now, they're not going to land in your lap, because there's things that you're going to have done, or an attitude that you were going to have presented, that have meant that those opportunities have landed with you, have come in your direction?
I think some of them are kind of, I guess I am a bit of a fateless person, a bit fatalistic. I think some of these things are fate. They just happened. There was no kind of engineering from my perspective at all. Jobs, and this has happened on a number of occasions. Jobs and houses, I think, are meant to be. They just find me, and that's just the way it is from my perspective. So I've just kind of ran with it. But then when I get into the position, I just give it absolutely everything, 120% to make it happen. And back to what I was talking about earlier, in terms of there's been a fire in my belly to do better all the time, whatever it might be, and to constantly learn, be it on the job or be it to take myself away and do some self-learning, etc. So they're the kind of a lot of the jobs that I've had have just appeared, and then I've just thought, right, okay, crack on.
What did you do at BGL? Because I think that's where you went next after Orange, and you were there for a while. So with that kind of attitude, I suspect you made quite an impact.
6 years I was at BGL. So again, that was a brand new startup. So I was literally the first person in the door. So they set up a new contact center in Sunderland, which still exists. And at the time, it was budget insurance, and some bright spark called Phil Zeidler came up with the idea to white label the car and home insurance proposition and sell it to big brands. And they got their first white label customer, which I think was Bradford and Bingley, and they used the budget insurance underwriting system, white labeled it, said the brand at Bradford and Bingley, and then we had to obviously service the customers. And initially it was a migration of about 60,000 Bradford and Bingley customers, and Homebase as well was the other customer. And he'd done the deal. Phil had done the deal with the chief executive Peter Winslow, and I was asked, along with a guy called Paul Clark, to get the contact center up, and Steve Luce, again, God rest his soul, to get the contact center up and running. And we did that really, really quickly with help from people at head office down in Peterborough, and went live within probably 2 or 3 months, I think it was. Recruited a bunch of people, team leaders, and pressed the button, started the migration at the customer anniversary, and then started to service and renew those customers. And then over the space of 6 years, so I was the kind of senior customer service manager, I think was the grand title that somebody had given me. But I was reporting directly into Paul Clark, who was the associate director for operations. And within 2 years, we'd launched about 7 schemes. And so we'd grown the affinity business from literally no customers to about 200,000 really, really quite quickly through migrations. And Paul left, and I stuck my hat in the ring for the associate director job, the head of site, and was successful. So I then ran the full operation, and we grew the business even further to about 20 different white label schemes. And some of them were bureau type situations where they were quite small. So we had pools of advisors that were multi-skilled and multi-branded. You then had M&S Insurance, for example, which was obviously a very different proposition. So we had a specific team for M&S who, and that's when I first started to get involved in customer experience design. So we had a chat with the guys from M&S and said, look, when it comes to the crunch, the key part of the experience is if you have a claim. And we kind of brainstormed what we're going to do with this claims operation and how we were going to do it. And we ended up calling it the cuddle unit. And we spent a lot of time. This is my first time spending time with customers to understand their experience and how they felt after going through the claims process. And we kind of built that cuddle unit experience back from the feedback. So I was there for 6 years and had a great time. And when I left, we built the insurance business from literally nothing to over 1 million customers. Phil Zeidler went on his merry way, hit his million mark, and I went on my merry way to Tesco Bank.
And I remember BGL. I mean, that's what, early mid 2000s, and I remember them coming out into the into the market and being award winning. Yeah. I'm sure that they won awards mid 2000s. So you were clearly on the always at the forefront, if you like, of what was going on. So after BGL, Tesco Bank.
Yeah, Tesco.
And did you leave BGL on purpose to go and look for your next challenge? What was it that meant? I guess once you've been somewhere 6 years, maybe it is time to move. But what was it that you were looking for at that point?
Yeah, I was looking for another challenge, but interestingly, we built 2 contact centers for BGL, and then we launched Compare the Market. So we actually didn't need two big contact centers, so there was an opportunity to leave the business, and it was the right time, etc. So I took that opportunity and went off to Tesco Bank. And I joined Tesco Bank. It was kind of mid financial crisis, and before it was Tesco Bank, it was Tesco Personal Finance, all managed out of RBS. And Tesco basically said, right, we're going to move our current customer base, I think it was about 5 million customers, away from RBS, and we wanted to build a bank and insurance company. And I joined on the insurance side on the program as an SME, as an ops SME. And I got involved in all kinds. I absolutely loved it at Tesco. I was there for 6 years. I learned so much. I mean, I loved it at BGL as well, but I learned so much at Tesco. So I was actually on the program to start with as an SME lead, looking at operating models, looking at things like channel strategy. I wrote job descriptions for the contact center. I led the work stream to find the contact center, and ended up in Newcastle. So I did a nationwide search all over the country. We looked at Liverpool, we went to Bristol, went all over, and ended up, because I was working up in Edinburgh, I was traveling up and staying up there. And it just, again, circumstances conspired so that, and came together so that we ended up in Newcastle, and signed a deal on Q8 over in Long Benton for 100,000 square feet contact center. And then kind of once the program got up and running, I then was asked to look at a number of different things. So we went through the recruitment of team leaders, did a massive recruitment drive. I can remember being stood on the on Newcastle Central Station on day one of the team leaders, and we had to go up to Edinburgh. And I had a big Tesco Bank sign. There was just me on the station, right? Stood like this with my Tesco Bank sign. 20 odd team leaders then kind of congregated around me. And then we went up to Edinburgh. They went through training. And then over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, kind of built the operation again from nothing. There was a migration at renewal, and gradually just started to grow the customer base and grow the capability operationally. So, and then once it went live, I set up the technical referral unit, managed the outsourcer at Aegeus, and it was then I thought, right, okay, I've got to a point where I felt like I'd earned my stripes operationally, and it was then I started to read the tea leaves in relation to customer experience and thought, right, I want to understand what makes the phone ring in the first place and how you might stop it, and started to think about customer experience management, and I wrote a business case to bring in web chat. So I started to get into channel management and customer experience.
When was this? I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. This is probably close to 10 years ago.
Yeah. It was just as web chat was starting to become a thing. I spent a lot of time researching best practice through my connections at Tesco Group.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of intentionally spent time at group level, down in Welling, up in the contact centres up in Dundee. And again, just this thirst for knowledge and understanding, and I started to learn about insight and the power of insight through dunnhumby and Clubcard, and then I started to understand what it was like to generate loyalty, and that's when I started to get into customer experience.
Interesting. So from Tesco Bank, you went to Virgin Money. I think you were there for about a year before then moving on to Atom, where the conversations I've had with you over recent years, you touched on it there, data and insights. I know that has been a key part in your role at Atom, being able to tap into what's going on in order to make a difference.
Sure.
But during that time, you've got into digital.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it kind of started. I was at Virgin Money for a year and a bit. I started in the back office transformation and process re-engineering, and then started to get a bit bored. And then I was like, right, okay, well, do you want to go manage the front office contact center? So got involved with that and social and digital channels, and then Atom came along, and I was like, right, okay, another startup. pure digital play, app only, voice the customer type stuff. Right, okay, and that's when I joined Atom, and Atom to this day is the best place I've ever worked. I've learned more at Atom. I mean, I've had quite a varied career, and I can say I've learned more in kind of nearly 7 years that I've been at Atom than I've learned everywhere else put together. So yeah.
I was going to say, what makes it the best place? Is it purely the learning, or is there something in the culture? I know that Atom has obviously been doing the pilot around the 4-day week. So what is it at Atom that really makes it one of the best places to work for you?
Well, it's a number of different things. I think first of all, the purpose, changing banking for good. We've got a bunch of really, really talented and intelligent people who are looking to change an industry and be, proper disruptors. So that was the first thing. It just, all of those things kind of was like, right, okay, this is really exciting. And then to build a business from literally nothing. We had no customers when I joined. I joined 2 weeks before we went live with family and friends. And to be part of a group of people that have built a business which is absolutely, challenging UK banking, was the UK's first app-only bank, so true pioneers, and it's been a roller coaster. There's been lots of ups and downs. It's been really challenging, but in a really, really good way. And then get to a point where we've now got up nearly £4 billion worth of savings balances, and we've lent out nearly £4 billion to retail and business mortgage customers. It's just been a fantastic journey. So it's the culture, it's the purpose, it's the people, it's the intent. And it's a really nice size organization. So we're at about 470 people, real collaboration, and just a really good bunch of people, really.
And I want to just come back to that 4-day working week. Is that working for you? Is that working for the business? Is it working for you personally?
Yeah, again, when it comes to kind of leading the way, this is just another thing that we've been the first, or one of the first in the world to do. One of the world's first app-only banks, the UK's first app-only. We launched biometrics on your handset. We had Face ID before Apple. So there's a trend here, right? It's not that like we've just come up with this, and this has been the first thing that we've done, which is really different and really challenging. But yeah, so the 4-day week has been life changing for a number of different people, me included. Fridays are much better than they used to be. I'm still kind of doing a little bit of work on a Friday. I think you get to a certain point as well in your career where I'm never truly switch off, but at least I've got the opportunity to, if I choose to, on a Friday, which means that I've got 3 kids, so weekends are just as busy as weekdays, and always have been. But a Friday, I've found that sometimes I can take the full day. Sometimes I've got just a few hours, which I can dedicate to me and it's my time. Also, one of the things that's become apparent to me is the power of rest. I never really thought about how important rest is in terms of your ability to reset, your ability to manage your mental health and to de-stress, and then go again. And I think when it comes to the business case for a 4-day week, when it boils down, when you actually boil it down, some really simple things, because of you've got more self-care, you've got more time for yourself. It means you're sharper, you have more focus, you're ready to go. And also in terms of the output measures, what we've seen is we've got less people that are leaving, we've got less absence, and we're seeing better business outcomes and customer outcomes because people have got a better work-life balance. So again, it's only until you do these things where it seems bleeding obvious, but it really is. You don't have to measure that much because first of all, if it feels like it's the right thing to do for your people, and this is why I love Atom so much. It's probably one of the few organisations in the country that is brave enough to go and do this type of stuff and test it. And if it didn't work, no doubt we wouldn't be rolling it out, but it has. So we're now enshrining the 4-day week into everybody's contracts.
And you have every Friday off as part of that, or do you change your day off?
I'm into a routine where I have most Fridays off,
Yeah.
but it's flexible. It depends on what part of the organisation you work in, of course. Some people are on rotas, etc. If you're front office, um, but sometimes I'll have a Monday, but most of the time I'm off on a Friday.
I think, do you know what? I think there's a whole conversation that you and I could have around the 4-day week that maybe we'll come to in the new year, because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot that people want to know, find out. How did you create the business case? Is productivity there? So we'll pick up on that separately. Now, thinking back of everything that you've said, who has been your biggest inspiration through your career?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's a number. So if I step through the different organisations, lady called Louise Doyle at Orange. She's now a CEO of her own software business. Peter Winslow at BGL and Phil Zeidler, who I've mentioned, and Franco Cotamaccio. Peter Winslow was the CEO, and I still think of him as James Bond. He used to drive in an Aston Martin, and also he flew his own helicopter, and I was like, wow. And he was just such a nice guy, brilliant businessman, and it's a bit of an industry legend in the insurance industry. His son now, who I spent quite a lot of time with, is the CEO of Aviva GI across the UK. Franco Cotamaccio, who was the head of operations, if you like, is also the CEO of his own business. He went back home to South Africa, but he was a real, just a lovely guy, really considerate, really kind, wanted to understand, and just a fantastic person more than anything. Sean Doherty at Tesco, the Chief Operating Officer. Benny Higgins, the CEO. And bring us right up to date, Mark Mullen, our CEO, and Edward Twitty, who is our Chief Customer Officer. So they would be the people in terms of some of the key things, key texts, if you like. And some of them were recommended by some of those people. So from a personal development perspective, Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'd recommend people read that. From a CX design perspective, the Effortless Experience by Matt Dixon and Rick Delisi has been a core text for me. And when it comes to transforming operations, this is probably the text that has had the biggest impact on me and my career, is Freedom from Command and Control by Professor John Seddon, which is all about transforming operations through systems thinking and understanding, using data, fairly demand, etc. I'd advise anybody that's listening who's just starting out in their career to read all three of those. But it's quite like reading, so don't. But if there was one core text, it would be Transforming Operations, Freedom from Command and Control by John Seddon, and that was recommended to me by Sean Doherty at Tesco.
Wow. And out of all of those people, was there any particular piece of advice that they gave you that you thought, I'm going to hang on to that and I'm going to pass that on to people that I end up working with, that I might end up mentoring? Is there a core piece of advice that has really stuck with you?
Well, there's so much. I think if I was to pick a couple, so thinking leads to feeling, leads to behavior, leads to perception. And the good news is you can manage your own thinking. So that was a bit of advice I was given, which, so essentially your mindset is so important, and the way that you think about yourself and about other people, it will have an impact on your career. So there was that bit of advice. When it comes to leading people, change the people or change the people. So focus on trying to develop people and to help them. But if all else fails, change the people. Was a bit of advice I was given. And yeah, I think there's a final one, which this was given to me by a guy called Graham Headley, who used to be the coup at L&G. And he showed me it's a framework called the drama triangle by Kaufman. And he basically shared that with me. So Google it. Google it if you're listening. Google the drama triangle by Kaufman. And he basically showed, and there's a lot of drama in contact centers, a lot of drama. And he said, right, if you're in a drama, you'll realize that you're in a drama because you'll be getting angry and you'll probably want to hit somebody. So step back and then use this model to understand what's really going on. And I was like, what the hell is this guy on about? Anyway, so I tried it, and there's only 3 stages that you can be in if you're in a drama, which is a victim, a persecutor, or a rescuer, and you just bounce around those states. He said, realize you're in it, jump back out, try and take an objective view and understand what's really going on, and then try and act to change the situation rather than getting caught in the drama. Great bit of advice. And his final bit of advice was, you can actually make changes by doing nothing. And I was like, again, what?
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like that's up your street, doing nothing.
What does that mean? And then he explained it to me. He said, well, once you understand what's actually going on, sometimes you can choose to do nothing, right? As long as you understand what's happening, right? And you're just making decisions around the outs. Don't get involved. Sometimes don't get involved. Just let it happen, and let the people that you are responsible for come to their own conclusion and to resolve the issue. Because sometimes you can actually make things worse. But you have to get to a point in terms of the levels of management to understand that doing nothing is the right thing to do, and you choose to do that.
Yes.
Rather than just not doing anything, and etc. So yeah. I think that would be my advice anyway.
Wow. Do you know what? I could carry on talking to you, Michael, for all afternoon. Thank you so much. Before you go, I've got some quick fire questions for you. I always like to finish on some quick questions. Do you call contact centres or do you use their digital channels?
Bit of both, really. Majority is digital channels. But if I've got a problem that is complex and emotional, I'll try and speak to somebody.
Yeah, which I think is how many consumers are. Who's more tech savvy, you or your kids?
Who's more tech savvy? Probably me, actually.
Oh, interesting. Because kids are very tech savvy these days.
Yeah. So when it comes to the tech, it's usually me who's kind of sorting that out and setting things up and what have you. They're more social media savvy than I am. So that when it comes to the sophistication of communication methods, definitely the kids. But when it comes to overall tech savviness, I think it's probably me.
How funny. Have you got a hidden talent?
No, not really. I don't tend to hide anything really. I'm pretty bad at hiding stuff. I can play a few chords on the guitar, but that's nothing to shout about. No, I think probably the I won the pools. I won the pools when I was 19, along with my auntie. That's probably my claim.
Wow.
Yeah, I won a few quid on the football pools. That's probably my claim to fame.
And thinking about hidden talents, just reflecting on what you said right at the start of the call, what's your current golf handicap?
6.
Very good. Very good. And my final question, if you were to write a book, what would you write it about?
What would I write it about? Probably how difficult it is to be a parent, I think. I've got 3 kids. In terms of my biggest achievement, I think they're probably it. But nobody prepares you for it. And yeah, it really is a roller coaster. And yeah, you can get advice from family members, etc. But it would be around the trials and tribulations of raising young human beings. I think would be what I would write about.
And I have to say that you could make millions with that. You could make millions with that because it is hard work. It is hard work. Michael, this has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for giving me your time, especially on your day off. So really appreciate you coming and joining me on Career Talk. Thank you.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And for those of you listening, you can listen to this all over again, either through the LinkedIn page or on the CCMA website. And we've got more on the CCMA website if you want to go and listen to some of the other great people in our industry that I've been chatting to. Take care. We'll see you soon.